You see, most men spend their entire lives trying to figure women out. But here's the thing. Understanding women isn't about memorizing lines or playing games. It's about insight, depth, and the willingness to truly listen, not just to her words, but to her silences. For far too long, the world has sold men a lie, that the key to attracting a woman lies solely in how tall you are, how chiseled your jawline is, or how many zeros you've got in your bank account. And while yes, physical appearance might catch a woman's attention momentarily, it's not what captures her soul. The truth is, what really keeps a woman intrigued, invested, and intimately connected is emotional intelligence. It's the quiet superpower that most men overlook. When a woman interacts with you, she's not just listening to your words. She's feeling your energy. She's sensing how safe it is to be around you. She's trying to discover, can this man handle my emotions? Can he hold space for me? Can I be my full self without being judged, dismissed, or misunderstood? You see, emotional intelligence isn't about being soft or overly agreeable. It's about having the inner maturity to understand both your own emotions and the emotions of others, especially hers. It's being able to read the room, understand when to lean in and when to give space, when to offer solutions, and when to simply say, I hear you. That simple sentence, I hear you, carries more weight than 1,000 empty compliments. Why? Because it tells her she's not alone in her experience. Let's break it down. Imagine this scenario. She comes home from a rough day, frustrated, overwhelmed, maybe even on the verge of tears. A man low in emotional intelligence might respond with irritation or try to shut the conversation down because he doesn't know how to deal with the intensity of her emotion. But a man with high emotional intelligence, he doesn't flinch. He stays present. He listens without interrupting. He's not trying to fix it. He's just being there, steady, calm, reliable. And guess what? That moment becomes unforgettable to her. Not because of what you said, but because of how you made her feel. She felt seen. She felt heard. She felt safe. Now, understand this. Women are wired for connection. From an early age, they're trained to tune in to emotions, to communicate, to empathize. So when a woman meets a man who can match her in emotional depth, who knows how to express vulnerability without weakness, who understands nuance, who doesn't run away when things get emotionally charged, that man stands out. You become the exception, the one she tells her friends about, the one who just gets it. Because here's the truth that many men never realize. Emotional intelligence makes you magnetic. It's the invisible thread that pulls her closer, even when you say very little. It's not about performing or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about becoming so grounded in yourself that you don't feel threatened by someone else's emotions. And let's be honest, women are deeply emotional beings. Not in the dramatic sense, but in the connected sense. They feel life deeply. They experience people fully. They want to share that experience with someone who won't shame them for it. So ask yourself, are you emotionally safe? Can a woman cry in front of you without you freezing up? Can she share her truth without you getting defensive? Can you recognize when she's pulling away emotionally and not blame her for it, but instead hold space and ask, what's going on? That's what emotional intelligence looks like. And trust me, it's more attractive than a six-pack, a luxury car, or 1,000 likes on social media. Women remember how you make them feel. They remember how patient you were when they were confused, how you listened without trying to control, how you didn't minimize their emotions or try to win the argument. That's where trust is built. That's where desire is born, in emotional safety. And the most beautiful part? Emotional intelligence can't be faked. It's something you embody. It shows up in the way you respond under pressure, the way you handle rejection, the way you treat people who can do nothing for you. It's in your tone, your eyes, your silence, and women pick up on it instantly. So while the world keeps telling you to chase money, muscles, and material things, I'll tell you this: develop your emotional intelligence, learn to communicate, Learn to hold space. Learn to stay calm when things get heavy. Because when you do, you don't just become more attractive, you become unforgettable. Most men think that to win a woman over, they need to impress her. Talk about their job, their plans, their gym routine, their opinions on everything from politics to crypto. But what many fail to realize is that talking too much, especially about yourself, can actually work against you. In fact, the real magnetism, it's in the silence. It's in listening. Deep, intentional, present listening. When a woman is speaking to you, she's not just sharing words. She's revealing layers. She's opening doors. Doors that very few people ever get to see behind. But here's where it gets real. Most men don't even notice. They're too busy waiting for their turn to talk. Too busy rehearsing the next thing they'll say to appear smart, funny, charming, or in control. But women, they feel that. They can tell when you're not present. They can sense when your eyes are looking at them, but your mind is elsewhere. Maybe scanning for a clever response, maybe thinking about something completely different. And when that happens, a wall goes up. Not because she's offended, but because something sacred has been missed, the opportunity to connect. Listening isn't passive. It's not just being quiet while the other person talks. Real listening, the kind that makes a woman lean in and feel safe, is active. It's engaged. It's when your eyes don't wander, when your body language is open, when you're not just waiting for your moment to jump in, but actually curious about who she is, how she feels, what she's saying beneath the surface. Most people don't listen to understand. They listen to reply. And that's the mistake. Because understanding builds trust. Replying just for the sake of sounding good, that builds nothing. When you truly listen to a woman, you're giving her one of the most precious things you can offer, your undivided attention. In a world that is constantly distracted, attention is rare. It's valuable. And women, more than most, know when it's genuine. They can feel when someone is fully present with them, and in that presence something beautiful happens. They soften, they open, they lean in. Now think about it. How many people actually listen to her? Her boss wants results. Her friends want updates. The world wants a version of her that performs. But you? You get to be the one who sees her, who hears her story without judgment, who doesn't interrupt, doesn't fix, doesn't rush. And here's what most men don't realize. When a woman feels deeply heard, she automatically feels connected, emotionally, mentally, even physically. Because to her, listening is intimacy, it's foreplay, it's trust. So when you sit across from her and actually give her space to express, not just the highlight reel, but the messy, unfiltered, emotional stuff, you become someone different in her world. You become the exception. Not because you did anything flashy, but because you did something most men never do. You paid attention. It's not about nodding and pretending to care. It's about being with her in that moment. You'd be surprised how many walls break down just from a few minutes of authentic listening. No advice, no interruptions, no agenda. Just you, her, and the conversation. And here's where it gets even more powerful. When you listen, you learn. You learn what she values, what she fears, what lights her up. You start to see patterns in her words, emotions hidden between the lines. And that knowledge, it becomes your advantage. You'll know when she needs reassurance versus space, when she's venting versus asking for help, when she's pulling away because something's wrong, not because she doesn't care, but because something in her world feels unsafe. You can't learn that by talking. You learn it by observing, by being silent enough to notice. It's in those quiet spaces where connection grows roots, where respect deepens, where attraction begins to move beyond the surface and into something much more meaningful, something real. So if you want to stand out, not just in the moment, but in her memory, don't compete to be the loudest voice in the room. Be the one who listens the deepest. Be the one who makes her feel like the only person that matters when she speaks. Confidence isn't about how loud you speak, how much space you take up, or how many heads turn when you walk into a room. Real confidence is quiet. It's still. It doesn't need to announce itself, and that's exactly why it's powerful. When a woman encounters a man who is confident, truly confident, she feels it, not just in what he says, but in what he doesn't have to say. It's in the way he holds himself, the calmness in his voice, the steadiness in his eyes, the absence of nervous fidgeting or over-explaining. He doesn't try to convince her of his worth because he already knows it. And that energy? It's magnetic. Women are naturally intuitive. They're constantly picking up on unspoken cues, sensing shifts in tone, body language, and emotional energy. When she meets a man who is grounded in himself, who doesn't waver under pressure or change depending on who's watching, she feels something she rarely gets in today's world: safety. And that kind of emotional safety is what allows her to relax, open up, and trust. Confidence tells her, without a word, "I've got this." It's not bravado. It's not pretending to be perfect. It's the ability to handle life, the good, the uncertain, and the difficult, without crumbling or becoming reactive. It shows up in how you handle rejection, how you deal with disappointment, how you treat people who can't offer you anything. That's the kind of confidence that speaks volumes. A lot of men confuse arrogance for confidence. They think dominating a conversation, showing off, or always needing to be right will impress her. But arrogance is just insecurity wearing a loud outfit. Women can tell when a man's confidence is real and when it's just a performance, and they will always choose real over rehearsed. When you are confident, you don't need to compete or compare. You don't feel threatened by her independence, her intelligence, or her ambition. Instead, you admire it, you celebrate it, because you know your place in the world isn't dependent on diminishing hers. That creates balance. That creates stability. She doesn't need to constantly manage your emotions or tiptoe around your ego. And that alone is freedom for her. Stability is more than just financial. It's emotional, mental, spiritual. A woman wants to know that when life gets tough, the man beside her doesn't fall apart, that he can weather storms without becoming cold or distant, that he doesn't run when things get uncomfortable. Your confidence tells her that she doesn't need to be the strong one all the time, that she can lean on you, not just physically, but emotionally. You see, confidence isn't about being right all the time. It's about being secure enough to admit when you're wrong. It's knowing that your value isn't diminished by vulnerability. In fact, when a man can show his heart without shame, that's when a woman starts to feel the depth of his strength. Because anyone can put on a mask, anyone can pretend, but it takes a truly secure man to be real. When a woman is with a confident man, she doesn't feel like she has to constantly reassure him. She doesn't feel drained by his need for validation. Instead, she feels energized, supported. She feels like she can be in her feminine, soft, expressive, and free, because she knows the masculine presence beside her is unwavering. That's what confidence creates, a foundation of safety. And it's not about having everything figured out. It's about how you show up in the middle of the process. Can you lead with grace when plans change? Can you stay composed when things don't go your way? Can you express yourself without aggression or avoidance? These are the markers of confidence, and they're far more attractive than any external trait you could offer. Confidence gives her certainty in an uncertain world, not because you promise perfection, but because you embody consistency. You show up the same, no matter who's watching. You take responsibility for your emotions. You lead with quiet strength. And in that, she feels something rare, the freedom to be her full self. That's what confidence really signals: safety, stability, the kind that doesn't have to be shouted from the rooftops, because the energy speaks for itself. There's a common misconception that communication is all about words, the lines you use, the conversations you spark, the compliments you give. But in truth, it's often the things that aren't said that carry the most weight. Women don't just hear your words, they feel your energy. They read your body language. They pick up on the small details, the subtle cues that reveal who you really are, even when you think you're being careful. Your body speaks before your mouth ever does. The way you stand, the way you look at her, the way you react when you're unsure, uncomfortable, or excited. Women are incredibly perceptive to this, not because they're analyzing every move, but because it's instinct. It's how they've learned to navigate the world. From a young age, many women are taught, consciously or not, to read between the lines for safety, for connection, for truth. So when you say one thing but your body says another, she doesn't respond to your words. She responds to the message your energy is sending. You can tell her you're confident, but if your shoulders are slouched, your eye contact is shaky, or your voice trails off when you speak, she knows otherwise. You can say you're okay, but if your tone is tight and your presence is cold, she feels the tension before you even realize it yourself. This is why some men confuse women's responses, because they think they said all the right things, but still didn't get the reaction they wanted. What they don't understand is that communication is deeper than language. You can't fake congruence. If who you say you are doesn't match what you project, there's a disconnection. And a woman will feel it instantly. Women respond to authenticity, and authenticity is communicated through the little things. A steady gaze that doesn't shy away, a relaxed posture that doesn't need to prove anything, a calm tone that speaks with intention instead of impulse. These are the quiet signs of a man who knows himself. A man who doesn't have to dominate a room to be noticed, because his presence already speaks for itself. Even in dating and attraction, subtle cues make all the difference. Your ability to hold space without rushing to fill every silence. The way you lean in slightly when she speaks, without invading her space. The quiet confidence of being still, without constantly checking your phone or scanning the room for validation. These are not dramatic gestures, but to her, they say everything. They say, I'm here, I'm present, I'm not trying to impress you, I'm just being me. And women don't forget those kinds of moments. Because in a world full of noise, someone who listens with their full body, who communicates with intention, who leads with quiet certainty, that kind of man stands out. Not because of flashiness, but because of depth. Subtle cues also show up when you're not trying to be impressive at all. Maybe it's how you talk to a waiter, with respect, not arrogance. Maybe it's how you pause before responding to something emotional instead of reacting impulsively. Or maybe it's how you offer a reassuring smile at just the right time. Those are the things she notices, and those are the things that stay with her long after the conversation ends. It's not about being perfect. It's about being aware, being conscious of how you show up, not just when you want something, but in every interaction. When you move with intention, when your words match your energy, and when your actions align with your values, you don't need to say much. She already knows. She knows you're stable when your voice is calm under pressure. She knows you're attentive when your eyes stay with her instead of drifting. She knows you're respectful when you let her speak without rushing to interrupt. She knows you're real when you're not trying to be impressive. You're just being consistent. These subtle signals, they're like emotional fingerprints. They leave an imprint, and often they say far more than a carefully crafted message ever could. So while other men focus on their next clever line or tactic, be the one who refines your presence. Be the one who sharpens your awareness. Because in the end, it's not what you say that makes her feel safe, seen, or drawn to you. It's what your presence says in the silence. One of the most misunderstood dynamics between men and women lies in how women test boundaries. The mistake many men make is assuming that these moments are confrontational, manipulative, or negative. But what if I told you that boundary testing isn't always intentional? And more importantly, it's not about controlling you. It's about understanding you. Women often test boundaries without even realizing they're doing it. It's subtle, it's subconscious, and it happens more often than most men notice, not because she's trying to play games, but because she's trying to feel something, your strength, your consistency, your truth. At the core of every boundary test is one question. Can I trust him to be who he says he is? That's it. That's the heartbeat of it all. It's not about picking a fight. It's not about catching you off guard. It's about seeing what happens when the mask slips, when pressure is applied, when things don't go as smoothly as expected. In those moments, your reaction tells her everything she needs to know. Let's make this real. Maybe she cancels plans last minute. Maybe she makes a sarcastic remark that hits a nerve. Maybe she pushes an idea she knows you're not into just to see how you respond. It's not always conscious, but it's real. Because through your response, she's gathering information, not with her mind, with her intuition. If you fold, become passive, or over-accommodating just to keep the peace, she notices. Not because she wants conflict, but because your lack of boundaries signals to her that you're not standing on anything solid. If you explode, get defensive, or start blaming, she sees instability, emotional volatility. Either extreme tells her you can't hold your ground with calm authority. But when you respond with clarity, calmness, and self-respect, that's when everything shifts. You show her that you're not afraid of discomfort, that you don't need to control her, but you will control your own standards. And that creates trust. Many men get uncomfortable at the idea of being tested. They think it's unfair or unnecessary. But here's the truth. Testing boundaries is how women feel out your strength, not your physical strength, your emotional, mental, and energetic strength. And often, this testing is happening beneath her awareness. It's not calculated. It's wired into how she measures safety and security. If she feels unsure, she probes. If she feels too much dominance, she pushes back. It's a dance of energy, and most of it is wordless. She wants to know that when she shows up fully, in her emotions, her fears, her questions, that you won't disappear, shrink, or become something else to keep her happy. She doesn't want a chameleon. She wants a man who holds his center regardless of what she throws at him, and who does so without punishing her for it. Here's what you have to understand. When a woman tests your boundary, she's not looking for domination. She's looking for certainty. She wants to see if your yes actually means yes, and your no truly means no. Because when it does, it makes her feel safe. It makes her relax. It allows her to be soft, expressive, and feminine, because she knows she's with someone who doesn't get easily shaken. A woman can only truly rest when she feels the masculine energy around her is stable, not rigid, not aggressive, stable. Boundaries are a huge part of that. Not just boundaries with her, but boundaries with life. How you handle your time, how you protect your peace, how you uphold your values even when they're challenged. You see, if you change your beliefs or behavior the moment you feel like you're losing her, she no longer feels anchored. And without that sense of anchor, her energy becomes anxious. That's when things start to spiral, not because she wants to leave, but because she can't trust what's real. But when you're consistent, when you don't need her approval to feel whole, when you can hear her out without losing your cool, when you can walk away from disrespect without drama, she respects that. And often, that's when she starts to lean in even more. Because now, she feels held, not by control, but by your unwavering sense of self. Women don't test boundaries to break you. They test them to meet you, to meet the real you, underneath the charm, the appearance, the performance. So when those moments come, and they will, don't take it personally. Just see it for what it is, an invitation to show your depth, your clarity, and your emotional maturity. A man without direction might capture a woman's curiosity for a moment, but a man with purpose? He captures her attention, her admiration, and most of all, her respect. Purpose isn't just some grand mission statement you shout from the rooftops. It's the quiet clarity that shapes how you move through the world. It's the fire in your eyes, the discipline in your actions, the consistency in your walk. Women are drawn to men who are moving toward something, not because they're chasing status or material gain, but because they're driven from within. There's something magnetic about a man who wakes up each day knowing who he is and where he's going, even if he hasn't arrived yet. That energy is rare, it's powerful, and women feel it immediately. Purpose communicates something deeper than potential. It communicates identity. A man with purpose doesn't need to beg for attention or prove his worth. His presence speaks before he opens his mouth. You can sense it in how he carries himself, how he prioritizes his time, how he says no without guilt and yes with intention. That kind of man doesn't move aimlessly. He moves with alignment. And here's the truth many don't want to accept. If a man isn't clear on where he's going, a woman will never feel safe following him. That's not arrogance. That's biology. That's psychology. Women are built to respond to leadership, not domination, but direction. And a man can't lead if he hasn't led himself. When a woman meets a man with purpose, it eases something inside her. It tells her she doesn't need to carry everything on her own, that she can exhale, that she can soften, because this man won't get lost when life gets messy. He won't lose himself in distractions. He won't be easily shaken by every challenge or swayed by every opinion. That stability is built from purpose. But let's be clear. Purpose doesn't mean you have all the answers. It doesn't mean your life is perfect or your goals are all achieved. It means you're in motion. You're pursuing something that's bigger than you, something that lights you up and gives your life depth. And in that pursuit, you develop the traits that women naturally admire: discipline, focus, resilience, patience, clarity. Women aren't impressed by your to-do list. They're impacted by the energy you carry when you live with purpose. There's something deeply attractive about a man who can say, "This is what I'm building, this is where I'm going, and this is what I'm not entertaining." That conviction builds trust. That focus builds emotional safety. And the best part? A purpose-driven man doesn't chase. He draws in. He doesn't manipulate or convince. He attracts through alignment. Because when a woman sees a man who's passionate about something beyond himself, she sees long-term potential. She sees someone who isn't easily derailed by rejection or hardship. She sees someone who's not depending on her to complete him, but who invites her into a journey that already has momentum. That's what creates emotional polarity. That's what activates her feminine energy. A man who is planted, steady, clear, not rigid but focused, not controlling but committed. And this is where many men go wrong. They prioritize impressing a woman instead of becoming the man she would naturally respect. They tailor their personality to her preferences, lose their direction, and wonder why she starts to pull away. It's simple. When you lose your purpose, you lose your power. And when your power disappears, so does her trust. Women want to feel inspired by the man they choose. They want to feel like being with him means growing with him, not carrying him. That doesn't mean she wants a finished product. It means she wants a man in process, a man who's willing to stretch, evolve, and move towards something meaningful. Purpose is attractive because it represents more than action. It represents integrity. A man who honors his calling will also honor his word. A man who shows up consistently for his goals will show up consistently in a relationship. That kind of character is rare and unforgettable. So no, you don't need millions in the bank. You don't need a fancy title or the loudest voice in the room. You just need direction. You need to know who you are, what you value, and where you're headed, and to move in that direction unapologetically. Most people think intimacy is built in the bedroom, that if the chemistry is there, the rest will fall into place. But chemistry can spark instantly and still fade just as quickly. What really sustains connection, what deepens it, isn't physical touch alone. It's the bonding hormone oxytocin. And here's what most men don't understand. Oxytocin is released not just during sex, but during emotional closeness, vulnerability, and trust. Oxytocin is the hormone that creates a sense of warmth, connection, and emotional safety. It's released when she feels held, not just physically, but emotionally. It's present when she shares a deep story and you actually listen. It's flowing when there's eye contact, gentle touch, shared laughter, or when you remember something she told you weeks ago without being reminded. These moments, these subtle, meaningful interactions, they leave more of a mark than a single night of passion ever could. For women, oxytocin plays an even more critical role in how they bond. It governs how emotionally open they become, how much trust they extend, and how safe they feel in your presence. And what's important to understand is this: if she doesn't feel emotionally safe, no amount of physical intimacy will make her feel truly close to you. You might have access to her body, but not to her heart. That's why you'll sometimes see women walk away from men who they were physically intimate with. Because while the experience happened, the bond didn't. The oxytocin didn't fully kick in because the emotional conditions weren't there. She didn't feel seen. She didn't feel heard. She didn't feel connected beyond the physical. Real bonding comes from consistency. The kind of presence that says, you don't have to perform around me. You don't have to protect yourself here. That's when a woman's walls start to fall. Not when you say all the right things, but when you become a place of calm in her chaotic world. That's when the bond begins. You see, most men are taught to focus on physical cues. Touch her here, say this, do that. But the truth is, most women are far more emotionally wired than men realize. They're listening for tone. They're reading body language. They're remembering how they felt around you more than what you actually did. And oxytocin is the silent thread that weaves all of those things together. You don't need grand gestures to trigger it. Sometimes it's just the fact that you stayed when the conversation got uncomfortable, or that you didn't flinch when she cried, or that you looked at her, really looked, and didn't look away when she got vulnerable. That's where real closeness is formed. This is why some women will say, I feel closer to him after just talking for hours. And others will feel completely disconnected even after sex. Because it's not the act, it's the experience, it's the energy, the trust, the softness you allow her to access within herself when she's around you. Oxytocin bonds are powerful because they create emotional memory. When a woman associates you with comfort, calm, and care, she remembers that. Not just in her mind, but in her body. She starts to crave your presence, not because she's needy, but because the bond feels safe. And safety is what allows love, trust, and intimacy to grow naturally. On the other hand, if a man uses connection only as a means to a physical end, he short-circuits the process, because once the moment is over, she feels the emptiness. She senses the absence of real connection, and it leaves her more guarded than before. And that's the difference between touch that feels intimate and touch that feels transactional. So what does this mean for men who truly want to build deeper, lasting connections? It means learning to slow down. It means realizing that physical intimacy without emotional intimacy often leaves her feeling unfulfilled. It means understanding that you bond with her, not just through her body, but through her emotions, her stories, her silences, her fears, her joys. And when you can consistently create those spaces where she feels safe, heard, and understood, you don't have to chase her. You become her emotional anchor, the man she thinks about, the one she feels bonded to, even when you're not around. Oxytocin doesn't ask for perfection, it asks for presence. And when you learn to master that presence, the kind that listens, holds space, and stays emotionally grounded, the connection you create becomes unforgettable. Many men have been raised to believe that if they can provide financially, they've done their part, that bringing home money, paying the bills, or spoiling a woman with gifts is enough to earn loyalty, love, and lasting connection. And while financial stability is important, it's not the only kind of security women need. In fact, for most women, it's not even the most important one. Emotional security is what truly makes her stay. It's what makes her trust. It's what makes her relax into love. You can have all the money in the world, but if she feels like she's walking on eggshells around you, if she can't talk to you openly, or if she constantly questions how you'll respond, then you're not creating the security she craves, because security is about more than just covering expenses. It's about covering her heart. Emotional security is the unspoken agreement that says, you're safe here, you can be yourself here. You don't have to earn love with perfection or fear abandonment when you're not at your best. That is the kind of foundation women desire, one where they don't have to perform or pretend just to keep the peace, where their emotions aren't a burden and their vulnerability isn't seen as weakness. Too many men think being stoic, emotionless, or hard is what makes them strong. But strength isn't found in shutting down. It's found in showing up, again and again, calmly, steadily, without disappearing the moment things become uncomfortable. That reliability, that quiet presence, it's priceless to a woman, because the world is already chaotic. She doesn't want chaos at home. She doesn't want unpredictability from the person she leans on. A woman feels emotionally secure when she knows you won't weaponize her vulnerability against her. When she knows that opening up about her fears, her frustrations, her insecurities won't be met with criticism or coldness, but with compassion and presence. And no, she's not expecting you to fix everything. Most of the time, she just wants you to hear her, to acknowledge her emotions instead of dismissing them, to hold space instead of trying to escape. Emotional security also means consistency in how you show up. It's the simple things: responding to messages when you say you will, keeping your word, showing up on time, not disappearing when conflict arises. These small moments build trust, and trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. She doesn't want to feel like she has to chase clarity or question where she stands. She wants to know that your words match your actions. And here's the part many overlook. Being emotionally safe doesn't mean you agree with her all the time. It doesn't mean you never argue. It means that even when things get tough, you don't resort to emotional manipulation, blame games, or silence. It means you know how to have hard conversations without turning them into emotional warfare. It means you can hold tension without losing control. When a woman knows that her emotions are safe with you, her body responds. Her energy softens, her femininity blossoms, and that creates a deeper intimacy than money ever could. Because now, you're not just someone who provides, you're someone she trusts. Not because of what you give her materially, but because of what you give her emotionally. Peace. Peace is the real luxury. Emotional stability is the real wealth. That's what she'll remember when she looks back. Not the price tag on the gift, but how safe she felt sitting next to you in silence. Not the dinner you paid for, but the way you looked at her when she was anxious and said, "I've got you." So yes, work hard. Build your empire. Secure your financial future. But don't neglect the inner work. Don't underestimate the power of presence, of emotional intelligence, of knowing how to navigate feelings, yours and hers. Because that's what builds a home, not just a house. That's what makes her stay, not just feel obligated to. Any man can provide money, but not every man can provide peace. And peace is what she's truly after. It means that understanding women isn't about decoding some complicated emotional puzzle or memorizing lines from a playbook. It's about self-awareness. It's about emotional maturity. It's about showing up as a man who knows who he is and lives that truth with quiet confidence, not loud performance. Women aren't looking for perfection. They're looking for presence. They're not drawn to chaos. They're drawn to consistency. And they don't bond through pressure or performance. They bond through peace, safety, and truth. When you understand that emotional intelligence outweighs physical attraction, when you realize that listening creates more intimacy than any pickup line ever could, when you honor your purpose, maintain your boundaries, lead with calmness, and provide emotional security without needing to be asked,